What does it mean to be a champion? Is it the gold around your waist? Is it the roar of the crowd chanting your name? Is it the look of fear in your opponent's eyes? For Stephanie Vaquer, it was all of those things, and more. They call her La Primera, the first. A fitting name for the woman who blazed a trail from her home in Chile all the way to the sacred rings of Consejo Mundial de Lucha Libre in Mexico and the global stage of New Japan Pro Wrestling. She wasn't just a champion, she was the champion. A double champion, holding prestigious titles in two of the world's biggest promotions simultaneously. Her image was one of absolute, unbreakable strength. In the ring, she was a technical master, a brutal strategist, a woman who carried herself with the confidence of a queen. She was the standard. She was the goal. Every woman in the locker room wanted to be her or to beat her. She had achieved the dream. In the hyper-masculine world of lucha libre, Stephanie Vaquer had shattered every glass ceiling, overcome every obstacle, and earned her place at the very top. She was an icon. She was an inspiration. She was, by every definition, invincible. But the brightest lights often cast the darkest shadows. The cheers of the arena are loud, but silence at home can be deafening. The persona we see under the lights is a performance. The person who goes home when the show is over is real. And for Stephanie Vaquer, the reality behind the championship gold was a nightmare few could have ever imagined. The strength she showed the world was being tested in ways we couldn't see. The battle she fought in the ring was nothing compared to the war she was fighting for her own survival, hidden away from the cameras, away from the fans, and away from the world that adored her. This isn't just a story about lucha libre. This isn't just about championships or fame. This is a story about the terrifying secret one of the world's greatest athletes was forced to keep. The story of a champion pushed to the edge. What happens when the person who is supposed to love you becomes the monster you fear the most? What happens when the icon of strength is made to feel powerless? Because behind the smile of the champion, a survivor was waiting to be born. And her biggest fight was just beginning. The secret lived in the silence. To the public, they were a lucha libre power couple. Stephanie Vaquer, the reigning double champion. Her partner, El Cuatrero, a member of the famous Nueva Generación Dinamita, a star in his own right in rival promotion, Edo de Day. They were two athletes at the peak of their careers. It looked perfect, but perfection is often an illusion. Behind closed doors, the dynamic was allegedly shifting. The relationship, once a source of support, was reportedly becoming a prison. This wasn't a sudden storm. It was a slow, creeping darkness. It's the kind of terror that doesn't always leave a visible mark. It starts with words, with control, with jealousy. Imagine being at the top of your game. You are celebrated, respected, and feared in your professional life. But at home, that strength is chipped away, piece by piece. You are told you are worthless. You are isolated from friends. Your accomplishments are minimized. This psychological warfare is the hidden foundation of abuse. It's designed to make the victim feel small, feel crazy, feel utterly alone. For a public figure like Stephanie, the isolation is magnified. Who do you tell? Who would believe that La Primera, the unbreakable champion, was a victim? There is a terrible shame that victims are made to feel, a voice in their head, often planted there by their abuser, that says this is their fault, that they are weak for letting it happen. And so she continued to perform. She would walk through the curtain, the music would hit, and the champion would appear. She would fight with all the fire and passion the crowd expected. She would hold her titles high, smile for the cameras, and do the interviews. And then she would go back to the secret, back to the fear. Living a double life is exhausting. The mental toll is immense. Every cheer from the crowd must have felt like a lie. How can you be a symbol of power for thousands, yet feel so powerless in your own home? This is the insidious nature of domestic violence. It thrives in silence. It convinces the victim that the outside world doesn't exist, that this hidden world of fear is the only reality. The abuser becomes the center of their universe, their sun and their black hole, all at once. For months, Stephanie Vaquer walked this tightrope, champion to the world, captive in private. She was fighting a title defense every single night, long after the arenas had emptied. The opponent was her partner. The prize wasn't a belt, it was her own life. But there comes a moment when the silence is finally broken, a moment so violent, so terrifying, that the illusion shatters completely. A moment where the choice is no longer between silence and noise. The choice is between life and death. The breaking point arrived in early March 2024. It was the moment the hidden war became a physical reality. The moment the psychological terror allegedly manifested into brutal physical violence. Details from the official reports are horrifying. This wasn't an argument that got out of hand. This was an attack. The reports filed by Stephanie Vaquer paint a picture of pure terror. She alleged that her partner, El Cuatrero, attacked her. We must be clear. These are allegations that are part of an active criminal case. But the complaint details an incident of extreme violence, an attempt to strangle, a struggle for life. In that moment, she was not La Primera. She was not the CMLL champion. She was a woman fighting for her next breath. Think about the terror. The person who was supposed to be your partner, your equal, your confidant, becoming a threat to your very existence. The hands that were supposed to hold you, now allegedly intent on harming you. The psychological walls that had been built to cope, they all came crashing down. The performance was over. The double life was exposed in the most brutal way possible. This was the end of the secret. What kind of courage does it take in that instant to make a choice? The choice to not be silent anymore. The choice to live. Stephanie fought back. Not in the choreographed way we see in the ring, but in the desperate, raw way of a person fighting for their life. She managed to get away. She managed to find help. The immediate aftermath must have been a blur. The police, the hospital, the questions, the dawning, cold realization that her life would never be the same. The world was about to find out her deepest, darkest secret, and she knew what was coming. The media frenzy, the questions from her employers, the reaction from fans, the whispers in the locker room. In the world of lucha libre, where image is everything, this kind of news is an earthquake. She could have stayed silent. She could have tried to hide the bruises, make an excuse, and let the cycle continue. Many do, out of fear. Fear of their abuser, fear of the media, fear of not being believed. But Stephanie Vaquer made a different choice. She didn't just escape. She decided to fight back. She decided to use the only power she had left. The truth. The nightmare had become public, but in doing so she was taking the first step from being a victim to becoming a survivor. The champion was down, but she was not out. News headlines flashing on screen. Luchador El Cuatrero arrested. Stephanie Vaquer files complaint for domestic violence. Wrestling world in shock. The sound of camera shutters clicking rapidly. The earthquake hit. The news broke and it sent shockwaves through the wrestling world in Mexico and beyond. Stephanie Vaquer did the unthinkable. She spoke up. She went to the authorities. She filed a formal criminal complaint against her partner for tentativa de feminicidio, attempted femicide. This wasn't a he said, she said messy breakup story. This was a serious criminal accusation. And the system, for once, acted. El Cuatrero was arrested. The legal machine began to turn. The Mexico City's prosecutor's office announced that the wrestler was detained. He was soon presented before a judge. This is where the fight really began. Taking action is one thing. Seeing it through is another. Vaquer had to stand by her story. facing a legal system that can be notoriously difficult for victims of domestic violence. Her employers, CMLL and NJPW, were put in a difficult position, but to their credit, they stood by her. CMLL released a statement offering their full support, condemning the violence and assuring that Stephanie had their backing. This was crucial. In an industry that often protects its own, her promotion stood with the victim. El Cuatrero's promotion, TCUAAA, suspended him indefinitely. The message was clear. This was being taken seriously. But the most significant legal step was the judge's ruling. After hearing the initial evidence, the judge declared El Cuatrero vinculado a proceso. This is a critical term in Mexican law. It means there was enough evidence to formally link him to the crime and proceed with a full investigation, holding him in preventative custody. Stephanie Vaquer was now fighting on a new stage, not a wrestling ring, but a legal arena. Her every move was scrutinized. She faced the public. She gave a press conference, surrounded by her legal team and supporters from CMLL. Her voice was steady. She was visibly emotional, but she was not broken. She confirmed the reports. She thanked her company for their support, and she said something powerful. She said she was not just doing this for herself. She was doing it for all the other women who might be suffering in silence. She had turned her personal tragedy into a public crusade. This was a massive moment. In the culture of lucha libre, often dominated by machismo, a top female star was publicly accusing a top male star of a violent crime. She was refusing to be silenced. She was refusing to be shamed. She was taking all the power her abuser had tried to steal, and she was seizing it back, one headline at a time. The complaint wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a declaration of war. It was the sound of a survivor finding her voice. The legal case was ongoing. Her alleged abuser was in jail. The world knew her secret. What now? For Stephanie Vaquer, the answer was simple. You go back to work. Just days and weeks after the most traumatic event of her life, she was scheduled to defend her championships. Nobody would have blamed her for taking time off. Nobody would have questioned her if she had relinquished her titles to focus on her recovery and her legal battle. She did not. Walking back into that locker room, walking down that ramp, climbing into that ring, that must have taken a strength beyond anything she had ever shown before. Every match was now a statement. Her first major match back was a title defense. The crowd was watching. The internet was watching. The entire industry was watching. How would she look? Would she be hesitant? Would she be broken? She was magnificent. It was clear that the ring was her territory. It was the one place where she was in complete control. It was her sanctuary. The violence that had invaded her private life had no place here. Here, she was the one who dictated the terms. She wasn't just wrestling for a win. She was wrestling for her identity. She was reminding herself, and the world, of exactly who she was. She was not El Cuatrero's victim. She was Stephanie Vaquer, La Primera, the NJPW Strong Women's Champion, the CMLL World Women's Champion. Her trauma did not define her. Her championships did not define her. Her survival defined her. The support from the fans was overwhelming. The cheers were louder. The signs in the crowd carried messages of support. Estamos contigo, Stephanie. We are with you. She had been afraid of being judged, of being seen as weak. Instead, she was embraced as a hero. She became a symbol for something much bigger, a symbol of resilience, a symbol for every person who has ever been made to feel small, scared, and powerless. She showed them that you can be broken and you can still be strong. You can be a victim and you can still be a champion. The two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, her strength as a champion was what gave her the platform, and her strength as a survivor was what gave her the will. She continued to defend her titles. She continued to travel. She continued to lead the women's division. She did not hide. She did not shrink. She fought. In the courtroom, she was fighting for justice. In the ring, she was fighting for herself, and in doing so, She was rewriting her own story. She was no longer just the champion. She was the survivor. Stephanie Vaquer's story is not over. The legal case continues to move forward. The battle for justice is a marathon, not a sprint, but her legacy is already written. Her impact goes far beyond the ropes of the ring. By filing that complaint, by standing in front of the cameras, by refusing to be silent, she started a conversation that was desperately needed in lucha libre and far beyond. She gave a voice to the voiceless. In a culture that often pressures women to stay quiet, caladita te ves más bonita. You look prettier when you're quiet. Stephanie Vaquer screamed. She showed that your abuser's power exists only in your silence. She has become an advocate by default. Her every match, every interview, every victory is now an act of defiance. It's a message to anyone trapped in a similar situation. You are not alone. You are not weak. And you can fight back. This journey has changed her. It has forged her in a fire that few will ever know. The gold belts she carries are symbolic, but the invisible armor she wears now is real. It's built from trauma, from courage, from resilience, and from the support of millions. She has redefined what strength means. Strength isn't just about lifting weights or executing a perfect move. Strength is getting out of bed when your world has fallen apart. Strength is facing your abuser in a court of law. Strength is walking back into the spotlight when all you want to do is hide. Strength is telling your story, even when your voice shakes. Stephanie Vaquer is a champion. That fact is undisputed, but her greater title, the one she will carry forever, is Survivor. Her fight continues, but she is no longer fighting alone. She is fighting with the hopes of thousands on her shoulders. She turned her darkest moment into a beacon, from champion to victim to survivor to advocate. La Primera has taken on a whole new meaning. She is the first to stand up in this way, in this arena. And because of her, she will not be the last. Stephanie Vaquer's courage to fight back is a powerful lesson in resilience. What does her story mean to you? How important is it for public figures to speak out against domestic violence? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please know that help is available. You are not alone.